A massive flood on the island of Bali, record-breaking rains in Tokyo and Beijing, the most severe drought in South Korea since observations began. But the main blow was delivered by the Siberian Plume, whose power was felt in Kamchatka. More on these and other climate events of the past week coming up in our review. Russia. On September 13th, Kamchatka recorded a significant surge in seismic activity. Over the course of the day, scientists noted 62 earthquakes with magnitudes starting from 3.5, of which 8 were felt by the population. An earthquake of magnitude 7.4, which occurred off the eastern coast of the peninsula, was among the strongest aftershocks of the July mega-earthquake with magnitude 8.8. A tsunami threat was briefly reported, but a powerful wave did not form. In Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, a temporary shelter for those afraid to return home, resumed operation. In the following days, strong earthquakes up to magnitude 5.9 were observed. Simultaneously with the earthquakes, volcanic activity increased. The Kambalny, Bezimiany, Shaivaluch, Kliuchevskoy, Karimsky, and Krasheninnikov volcanoes showed signs of activity. Despite seismologists' belief that the M7.4 aftershock was the strongest and seismic activity would subside, they were wrong. And the elements delivered an even more powerful blow.
Mama.
The morning of September 19th in Kamchatka began with panic. An earthquake of magnitude 7.8 occurred in the Pacific Ocean. Eyewitnesses reported that houses shook, plaster fell, and floorboards cracked. People ran outside in their home clothes. Some buildings in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky developed cracks. In the hall of Yelizovo Airport, people hid near columns, fearing collapse. Several flights were cancelled or delayed due to the tremors. Over the next 24 hours, 47 underground shocks of magnitude 3.5 and above were recorded, more than half of which had magnitudes of 5 or higher. According to the director of the Unified Geophysical Service of the Russian Academy of Sciences, the situation does not fit any known scientific models describing aftershock propagation. China. A powerful convective storm struck Beijing on the evening of September 13th. Most of the city was under the control of the elements. Thunder rumbled, lightning flashed, strong winds blew, rain poured, and hail fell suddenly. In the Tongzhou district, the maximum rainfall intensity was recorded. More than 34 millimeters of rain fell in 1 hour. In some places, hail was the size of ping-pong balls and even chicken eggs. Cars were damaged, and in several districts, ice covered the ground in drifts. Longtime residents recalled that in the last 40 years, they had not seen anything like it. The storm complicated transportation. On one of the central subway lines, operations had to be suspended due to a tree blown onto the tracks by wind and rain. September in Beijing was abnormally hot. This contributed to the formation of a sudden convective storm, completely atypical for this time of year. Japan. On September 11th, Tokyo and Kanagawa Prefecture were hit by record rainfall, which led to severe flooding and paralyzed the functioning of the metropolis. Historical records for rainfall intensity were broken. In Tokyo's Meguro district, 134 millimeters of precipitation fell in 1 hour, setting a record. In Setagaya and Ota, hourly values also reached the highest level since observations began. On the roads of the Midori-Gaoka commercial neighborhood, the water level reached 20 centimeters. An employee of one store noted that water quickly flooded the premises, cut off the power, and caused losses, the largest in 50 years of operation. Residents of basement apartments suffered. Doors could not be opened due to the pressure of water outside, and 6 children were trapped in one of the apartments. Fortunately, they were rescued. Lightning halted operations at Haneda Airport, and flooding disrupted train traffic on the railway. At Tokyo's seaport, a sudden hurricane-force gust overturned containers. One person died, and another was injured. Meteorologists identified this phenomenon as a microburst, the frequency of which has increased worldwide in recent years. Indonesia. On the island of Bali, one of Indonesia's main tourist centers, the largest flood in decades has struck. 6 of the 8 districts of Bali province and the regional capital, the city of Denpasar, were hit by the disaster. Torrential rains caused rivers to overflow, flooding streets, residential buildings, temples, and recreational areas. Access to Ngurah Rai International Airport, the main transport hub for incoming tourists, was restricted. Transportation was disrupted by landslides that blocked roads and destroyed bridges. The military used boats and trucks to rescue those stranded on the way to the airport. In Denpasar, 2 buildings collapsed, and in some districts, the water reached up to an adult's waist. Hotels, banks, office buildings, and even medical facilities were forced to close. At one of the markets, the entire first floor was submerged, while the second floor was buried under a thick layer of mud. Due to power outages, the regional hospital had to rely on generators to keep operating rooms functional. In the Kertalangu tourist complex, the flooding was so severe that water reached the ceilings, and children had to be evacuated through the attics. Beaches and famous resorts were left buried under piles of debris. Large numbers of tourists were evacuated. The island's authorities declared a state of emergency. As a result of the flood, at least 17 people have been confirmed dead, and 5 remain missing. Algeria and Tunisia. On September 10th, a powerful storm struck the eastern regions of Algeria and the northwestern part of Tunisia. A calm evening turned into chaos within minutes. The sky rapidly darkened, clouds gathered, and large hailstones began to fall. Algeria's Tebessa province was hit hard by the disaster. Hailstones smashed windows and tore through rooftops. Drivers were forced to stop their cars due to shattered windshields. 4 people were injured and taken to the hospital. In Tunisia, hail the size of walnuts caused significant damage to olive and fruit trees, as well as to vehicles. Poland. At Kraków-Balisy Airport on September 14th, an incident occurred when an Enter-Air passenger plane was unable to brake upon landing and overran the runway. According to the airline, the incident was caused by heavy rains. Water that had accumulated on the runway disrupted the braking process and caused the aircraft to skid. The evacuation was carried out quickly, and fortunately, neither passengers nor crew members sustained serious injuries. The blockage of the airport's only runway completely paralyzed operations, and special equipment had to be brought in from the Czech Republic to clear it. Turkey. Recently, incidents of sudden wind intensification, microbursts, squalls, tornadoes, and other anomalies have become a serious danger for the population. Thus, on the evening of September 11th, a sudden storm struck the village of Tizarin in Turkey's Ara province. The sky quickly darkened, and powerful winds ripped the roofs off many houses, while some buildings were completely destroyed. Having lost the roofs over their heads, people were forced to seek temporary shelter with neighbors and relatives. Colombia. On September 14th, the city of San Angel in the Magdalena department was struck by a tornado, an extremely unusual phenomenon for this country. The tornado swept through a bullfighting arena, tearing down metal and wooden structures. People fled in fear, seeking shelter. Fortunately, no casualties were reported. It should be noted that tornadoes are a new phenomenon for Colombia. The first one was officially recorded only in 2001. South Korea. According to the classification of the World Resources Institute, South Korea is considered a country with a medium to high level of water scarcity. Paradoxically, heavy rains only worsen the problem. Due to drought, the soil becomes dry and hard, and precipitation cannot soak in, instead flowing into rivers and seas without replenishing groundwater reserves. This increases the likelihood of floods and complicates reservoir management due to sharp fluctuations in water levels. In the city of Gangneung, on the eastern coast of South Korea, a record drought was recorded, the strongest since the beginning of observations. The Obong reservoir, which provides about 87% of the city's needs, was almost empty at the beginning of September. Only 11.5% of its volume remained. Despite the heavy rains on September 12th, which brought more than 100 millimeters of precipitation, the water level increased only to 16%, equivalent to approximately a 10-day supply. Strict water consumption restrictions were imposed. Residents received water only 2 hours a day, 1 hour in the morning and 1 in the evening. A state of emergency was declared in the city. For the first time in the country's history, the cause was not a fire or flood, but drought. Farmers' crops were failing, businesses suffered, and daily life came to a halt. Residents said they had never experienced anything like it. They could neither wash, do laundry, nor bathe properly. All existence was reduced to a struggle for the basic resource. Water shortages in Gangneung forced the mobilization of fire trucks and military tankers from various regions of the country. The situation became so critical that a Coast Guard ship also arrived in the city. 8 million bottles of drinking water were delivered to the city to supply residents. After the rainfall, the water supply schedule was expanded to 6 hours, but this was only a temporary measure. The root problem remains unresolved. Meteorologists report continued drought, and residents must live with the anxiety that water could suddenly run out. However, what is happening in Kamchatka is a regular process with a much larger nature, clearly confirming a scientific model developed by researchers of the international Alatra movement. This is not just an increase in tension between two tectonic plates, but the influence of a colossal Siberian magma plume, a flow of molten magma whose zone of influence is comparable to the area of Australia. The pressure of the plume spreads far beyond Siberia and can trigger powerful earthquakes thousands of kilometers away. This process can be compared to a giant hydraulic piston. Magma pushes up on the lithosphere, but the Siberian platform is ancient, rigid, and monolithic. It does not bend or break in the middle, but transmits stress to the edges of the Eurasian plate. There, in the collision zones with other plates, the stress concentrates and manifests as so-called edge effects. Thus, the impact of the plume does not appear as sudden local crustal deformations, but causes a slow, uniform uplift of the entire Siberian block. This large-scale but relatively slow process creates enormous stress at the edges of the continental block, where the most pronounced geodynamic processes occur. Therefore, the series of powerful earthquakes in Kamchatka is not a release, but only a temporary vent through one of the valves. The system as a whole continues to accumulate tension, indicating the beginning of a new, more intense phase of geodynamic changes on the planet. And now humanity faces a choice: continue along the familiar path of complacency, denial, and ignoring facts, or take the path of accepting uncomfortable truths and immediate coordinated action. The choice is up to each of us.